moment are Ken Hall, who is the producer, Paul Whittington, the director, and Neil Mackay, writer and executive producer. Jeff Pope is about to join us here on stage. The people on stage already have won so many BAFTA awards between them that apparently if they win one more for this, they get to keep the whole building. So a lot of tension there, but obviously there should be a strong chance that they should win more for this. If we let's start with Jeff, because you have not shied away from difficult subject matter. In fact, the people around on stage have done Moore's Murders, they've done West Story, appropriate adult. Each time some people say, should it be dramatised? What about the living people who were involved in it and the effect on them? Right. Come on, join us on stage. Not at all. No, we introduced the others. Dame Sheridan Smith. She died before me one day, so we must well get her out of the way now. Only OBE at the moment, I think, that she goes. But one of our greatest actors and just been fantastic, and is about to be again Funny Girl on stage, and you've just seen her performance in the Moorside. And we're just saying that Jeff and Neil, they've worked on various controversial real-life stories, and so you've had to tussle with those issues a lot as to what it's going to be like for the people who've been through it.
Yes. Just before I kick off, I just wanted to one final dedication, which was Gemma's dad, who we also lost before Christmas, Gerard Williams. So another dedication for Gerard. I think why I've looked into these stories, and a lot of them I've made with Neil, it's because I think as what you're looking for are extremes of human behaviour, I guess. I'm trying not to turn into some kind of psychoanalysis, but in crimes like stories we've taken on the Moore's Murders and Appropriate Adult, there are extremes of behaviour and there are extremes of conflict, and so that's what draws me to those stories. And I think the thing that we've developed over the years is a way of looking at them that's not prurient, that's not kind of, this story was not about the ordeal of Shannon. It wasn't about whatever happened.
I was going to say, it's interesting where we don't go, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. We never go to the house with the divan bed in it, or any of that. We only ever see a couple of glimpses of Shannon Matthews from behind.
Yeah, a huge amount of thought went into it. We looked at the story, and then we thought, well, why would you tell the story? What's your way into it? And what emerged, at any given point in time, we're looking at a number of different stories and thinking maybe there might be something interesting here. Maybe this will reveal something. I mean, always what we're trying to do is to kind of, there's a tip of the iceberg of this story that pokes above the water, and a whole lot below it, and that is the thing that we find fascinating, to explain what happened. And when we looked into the story, we found that really it was a story of the women of that estate, and they tried so hard, and they came together so wonderfully. I was talking to Sheridan the other day, and there was a great quote she made when she said to me that when you empower someone like Julie Rushby, there's nothing she can't do. It's just that not very often in her life does Julie get empowered. So that was the story we followed, and we thought that enabled us to take us all the way through the fight, the hope, the joy when they found her, and then the terrible betrayal, and then how to cope.
Sheridan, on that, the betrayal, because it's a heartbreaking story, Julie, and a very unusual one, because as you know, there have been lots of, particularly American films, about someone who takes on a corporation, and they win generally at the end, and there are these great scenes. What's astonishing about this story is just the betrayal, that she has that trust and then it's betrayed.
Yeah, Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. Julie never wanted to see the bad in Karen. She never wanted to give up hope, and when everyone else around her could kind of see, she just didn't want to admit that, you know. I mean, me and Julie are still friends. I've got such admiration for everyone on that estate, I have to say, and all the people that we met whilst filming, but especially the women, and especially Julie, who, you know, she just refused to give up, and I just think that's so admirable. And like I said to Jess the other day, you know, women like that, they're given a chance, and they just, nothing they can't do. We're friends today, me and Julie, you know, we were speaking yesterday. So, like, we've become really good pals.
And if you play a real person, and you've done it before, there's a choice that actors have to make. Are you going to meet that person? But also, more importantly, what are you doing? Are you trying to impersonate them, or...?
Well, Julie's more stronger than I am. So she's a typical kid, but she's got a heart of gold, an absolute heart of gold. And well, it's always lovely to meet them. And you know, like with when we meet her before together on Mrs. Briggs and Scylla, there was so much research that we could look into online, and you know, but actually meeting Julie, and there was one night the scene before the cop death, when I went to the church, and she talks about that. And Julie came round to where I was staying, and we had a really kind of like real heart-to-heart the night before, and she really helped me up the whole journey all the way along. And yeah, I got to love her, you know.
And what are you, when you play a real person, what are you looking for? Are you trying to steal little things from them, how they talk and how they move?
Yeah, absolutely. Their kind of mannerisms, their walk, and, you know, it's always nice to lose yourself and just be a completely different character, you know. So hence the hairdo.
And Julie Walters, when she played Mo Mullen, which is something Neil knows a lot about, she said she asked for footage of her just before the camera started rolling on current affairs programmes, so that she saw her when she wasn't being Mo Mullen and when she didn't know. I thought that was quite interesting because, because you're trying to catch someone when they're not performing.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a lot that kind of thing with Scylla as well, didn't we?
Yeah,
We did
there's a lot
with,
of that stuff.
Yeah.
but yeah,
Because people are quite different, aren't they? So that's what you're looking for.
that is very true. Yeah, whereas Julie, what you see is what you get.
And it seems quite an old question, but can the title be interesting now? Because there have been several, and even in the emails I've been sent, it's been called Moorside, the Moorside Project. On the other hand, there are certain networks who won't name who would have called it something like 22 Days Under the Bed. And clearly, deliberately, you haven't gone for anything like that.
No, as you can see, it's not that kind of drama. We did have long debates about the title, and for we did have another time. I'm not sure how much of this I'm really supposed to say.
Just say it. You're on track.
We had decided on one title which we thought captured it, and then there was another drama around that had a very similar title. So we had to
Go on, what was it?
we were going to call it One of Our Own. Okay, and then there was another drama called One of Us. So we decided
We originally called it Julie and Our Friends.
Julie and Our Friends as well.
You know, right, for a long time, because, you know, sort of that's what it was. But then again, that made it just like it was just them, and actually it was the community.
All through the edit, it was just Moorside.
Yeah.
Because we still hadn't worked out the title. I think in the end I was really, I think it was happy, and I think you can't say to everyone, this isn't a story about Shannon, this isn't a story about Karen Mackey, this is, you know, so, and then have a title that says, you know, Under the Bed or whatever, that awful, you know.
Or the disappearance of Shannon.
Yeah.
Because there would be some recognition for that, wouldn't there? But
yeah.
You've gone without that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that story because particularly that second half, and you don't, I saw it tonight together and then I saw it separately before. You don't know where it's going to go in that second half, the extent to which it's going to be Julie's story. I mean, it becomes her drama, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think you know, you kind of, maybe it's suited in the first episode, but what unfolds in the second is that both our central two characters, Sheridan's character Julie and Sheridan's character Natalie, were both sexually abused. And when that happens to you, you kind of lose your childhood. And then Julie lost a baby as well to cop death, and you realise actually what's the thing that really sits so deep with those women is a story of a lost child. Goes to the heart of them as people, and that sort of unfurls in the second episode in a way that we only got get to know about through spending a long, long time in the room.
And Neil, as you know, you've done many of these based on real-life dramas, and there's always a caption. The wording can change, but it's always along the lines, as we saw at the start tonight, of certain scenes will be imagined for dramatic purposes. That makes critics, particularly journalists, and viewers, you don't know which bits are and which bits aren't. I'm assuming, to take 2 examples, because I don't think you would dare make them up. The scene where Karen dances to the mobile phone, that must have happened. And the scene in the car must have happened.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, also just to say that I hate that disclaimer, but we have to do it and see why. A.A. Gill used to call it the forked tongue disclaimer, didn't he? And I resent it because I think we try, this gang here, try much, much harder than others.
And it's for legal reasons you have to do it.
It's also I guess, in its deepest sense, a contract with the audience. So we're being absolutely scrupulous. The
suggesting very good. The problem is that the audience, they may suspect it's
No, I know.
That's the risk.
Yes, it is. And like Neil, it is very, very difficult to come up with a wording that satisfies us and yet is honest. I think
for the purpose of this drama, all those scenes you might think, God, is that true? They are true. You know, dancing to the telephone, walking through the park with Karen waving at passerby. Shannon's famous now. All those ones, Craig, me, and attempting suicide by Kelpol. I mean, which is on the Channel 4 documentary, actually.
So give us the counter example of one you can
Counter example, I'm tempted to say we gave Julie 3 geese and she only had 2 in real life. They were called Juicy and Lucy. So dedication to our executive producer, Lucy Rachel. But I think as much as anything, what's happened on this and probably everything that I've tried to do, it doesn't matter if it's a lightweight comic story, it doesn't, but on this it does, you know, it is the contract with the audience. And I think there's things change according to location. So I know that Julie had many conversations with the Reverend Kathy about the loss of her child. I don't know that on that day, at that time, she went to the church and had that conversation. So you set that scene in the church.
But that astounding speech that Sheridan has at the end.
Oh, in court. I'd be distressed beyond belief if people thought that didn't happen.
But I mean, it is amazing because Ibsen would have loved to have written that speech, but it was genuinely what she said.
Listen, Julie's, Sheridan knows, speaks in her way and tells it like it is. And there would have been, she would have struggled not to swear. She constantly does. She tries to say Chuck Williams sell a fucking, but she doesn't.
And shit cakes, is that one of hers?
It is one of hers, yeah. And go and shit out your mouth, that's one of hers.
Right.
Shit out your mouth.
shit cakes is a Yorkshire one, though, is it? Yeah, you
Right.
that one, yeah.
Like Pontifex cake.
And very patient, although he did all this work, the director. That's the level of naturalism you get, which you have to in something like that, is we've got to believe that that's really what happened in court, which it was, but those are real people. So just take us through, and Sheridan coming on this as well, but the amount of rehearsal you have before on the day, how many takes, that kind of thing.
We probably had about a week together with the cast, didn't we, before we started shooting, which is not an awful long time. And the rehearsal process is very much less about reading scenes and blocking scenes, and it's more of a discussion, really, about characters, about the story, about the relationships. Going into a lot of detail with that, in terms of what Sheridan was saying before about what she took from Julie. You know, we looked at each character in detail, and their relationships and where they go in the story. But really, that was a discussion to really not be too nailed down once we got on set. Always to allow, things that happen on set and have a certain spontaneity to play. Not least, the scenes in the house, for example, we had 6 or 8 handers in there. There was, once the family were in, they were big scenes with a lot of characters. And you can, it's interesting if you can allow things to happen a little bit in those spaces. I mean, they were confined spaces, we shot everything on location. with 2 cameras in front rooms that were 12 foot by 12 foot. And, but that in itself brings its own sort of naturalism to it, because I feel that, you know, when you're on an estate like that, and we spent a long time shooting there, in and out of those houses, you get a feel for it. You get the actors kind of connect with that community.
And then that astonishing scene, which I've seen twice today now in the car, I mean the shooting of that, this is an incredibly complex scene involving 3 people, so how, just talk us through that one.
There's always, you know, in the factual dramas I've done, there was always one scene that kind of looms large when you look at the schedule, and there's always a scene that kind of, because it's something that you kind of feel, if you don't get it right, it's going to undermine the integrity of the entire piece, actually, and that, not least because obviously it's a pivotal plot point, you know, turning point in the plot. But actually what was crucial about that in our story was that the 3 women who we spoke to who were in that car, Christine, Julie and Natalie, all said and all will say to this day, independently of each other, that that is perhaps the one and only time that they felt that they heard the truth from Karen, even though Karen herself has subsequently contradicted some of what was said. So it was vitally important for us not only to kind of play that scene right, but for it to play in the context of the drama, that we as an audience feel that that's the truth. I feel like for the first time we're hearing the truth and not just another one of Karen's lies. And so there was a lot of weight riding on that scene.
Did you feel that, Sheridan, that was the big scene?
We spoke about it, you know, we also was Gemma was, you know, I mean, you know, Natalie talked in court about how the English work, they all said it was kind of chill and that, and Gemma just was a brilliant name, so it just all happened actually with Charlotte.
But when you have, I mean, it was brilliantly written, and with actors of that calibre, you know, you discuss it a lot, but actually it's about, from my point of view, it's then about ensuring that they be given the time and the space for that to play. And we rigged 3 cameras and shot them simultaneously.
Heart attack for the producer.
Yeah.
A point about the process though, which is that we try, Neil and I and Ken, try as much as possible to free the creative process on set. So that factual drama, if it were the factual side of it, we've agonised over, and then we've got a script, but then it is drama. It's about allowing Paul and the cast to not be, as it were, weighed down or have, you know, these kind of weights on their back about we have to be accurate, we have to do, you know, it's get that out of the way and then create something on set. That's the process. And when I started years and years ago, there was a phase dramas like this went through where they would be agonising about a character would have a drink. Would it be scotch? Would it be brandy? You know, we've got to be accurate like that. And of course you do, but it's about believing those characters, about, you know, retaining being true to the sense.
Well, it's interesting how that matters because David Cross family objected, didn't they, in the Dad's Army drama, that he was shown chain smoking, whereas in fact he was a fanatical anti-smoker.
Yeah.
So you can accidentally get those things wrong
Yes.
when smoked in the
Yeah.
60s. But that's an example. But actors, though, at a simple level, actors will often ask, I'm not actor, but I've seen actors in rehearsal rooms, they will ask a director, am I lying or am I telling the truth? Now with the character, less so for Julie, because you basically knew what she knew at any one point. But with the actor playing Karen, we don't know now, do we, when she was telling the truth and when she wasn't.
Yes and yes. Yes, I'm lying. Yes, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was interesting about approaching Karen, what Gemma sort of got very early on, you know, we studied a lot, obviously a lot of the available footage of Karen. We spoke to Julie and Natalie about her, and there's obviously footage there, you know, when she's presenting in news conferences and making appeals, etc. There was one thing that we did, that we all talked about, and we all sort of identified, that was quite interesting, that she did get emotional. And when she was emotional in those moments, it felt real, actually. And that wasn't a performance as such. Now, it might not be the real emotion of a mother who's lost whose daughter has gone missing, but we talked a lot about, actually, she sort of seemed to exist a lot in the moment, Karen. And
Which
and
is what activists do.
exactly, and in those early days, actually, even though with her knowledge of what the truth was, she actually found herself in the eye of a storm. And a lot of that emotion came from fear and panic, and played one way to those of us who didn't know what the truth was.
But without making Neil blush even more, there's that lovely scene that Sheridan had where she watches the, after the event, the press conference, and that whole scene, everything in your face, she was obviously acting, but when was she acting, and when wasn't she? I mean, that's a great scene, I think. No, but I mean, you played it, you did it. No, but that's an important scene, though, Sheridan, isn't it? For that reason, that it's that question of what.
Yeah, well,
The
that's
truth,
when
what was
you
true and what wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, you do, you know, a lot of people would think, kind of, why is she not getting it? And she's been trying to put it back in mind that no one could do that to a child, you know, and obviously she's been abused and stuff like that. So she doesn't want to believe it. So that is the moment that she's going, okay, you know, this isn't, you know, that she lets her guard down there and goes, right, okay, yeah, something's not right here. So it was a lovely scene, so thank you.
The cutting as well. Ben, the editor, I saw it earlier. But the cutting as well is underline that. So, for instance, there's a scene when her children are taken away from, which was the way Gemma played, well, the way everyone played that scene was heartrending, and the distress was, and then cut, and she's eating a bag of Monster Munch. Yeah, I mean, in that cut, that tells so much of what they were confronted with. When's she lying? When isn't she? We can't read this woman.
Now, we're going to take questions from you. We've got 2 microphones out there. We'll do as many as we can. As I say, the people on this stage have worked on many, many projects, but for the purpose of tonight, because of the time and probably anything else, we can only take questions on whatever this project is now called, the Moorside. The Moorside. So we'll only take questions on that, but any that you'd like to... yes, hands are going up. So, gentlemen on the aisle there.
See the badly drawn Boyd in the music, which is interesting. How does that come about?
I'll hand over to Paul. I worked with him on The Fattest Man in Britain, and he did with the late great Caroline Aherne, and so I worked with him on that, and then just had this thought that well, why don't you take over, Paul, about his sensibilities?
Yeah, his sensibilities are, I mean, as you know, not that it's about this being from the north. It was, you know, it's northern. You know, there's something very kind of characteristic about our world that Damon connects with. Damon Goff is Bradley Cooper's name, and it was a delicate one. It's a delicate score in terms of how emotional you can make it, or where you go in terms of suspense. It's a delicate genre.
And sometimes there isn't any at all, as in the scene where Julie and Natalie are discussing what happened to them.
Yeah,
which is another decision.
Absolutely, very much so.
Yeah.
And really, it was kind of there just to sort of support the community story, I guess, as much as anything, and to try and capture the heart of that, which Damon's sensibilities are particularly strong at. But yes, it's also about when you don't go there.
Anyone on that side? Who wants to wait for that microphone over there? Don't be shy, please. Yes.
Obviously, you had contact with the community and you were able to ask all the community questions, things, and you had access to Christine, was it, the police liaison officer? Were you able to talk to the police quite a lot in terms of records and how the case was closed and the answers you could get?
We spoke to retired police officers. We didn't speak to anybody serving, but the retired police officers were so much at the heart of the story. I mean, they may have contacted serving police officers to give us some information that we didn't necessarily immediately have, but I guess it wasn't a police story really in the end. It wasn't, I mean it was, but it was a family liaison officer's story, so there wasn't a great amount of the police investigation that we need. There's loads of footage of it before, but I mean we didn't use documentary footage, it was all recreated. So yeah, you know, our police sources were largely Christine Freeman, who's a wonderful woman, equally one as much as the others, actually equally forthright, equally Judy, equally Yorkshire, and Kitchen, the community liaison officer, who is also retired. Was very pleased.
Probably a good thing he's retired, Rick, to be honest, disciplinary for all that.
All that.
Yeah.
We asked him about that, did he mind, and he was well up for it. He was played by Dean Andrews.
And Ken, just picking up from the question there, because strictly interpreted, there are BBC guidelines saying that any living person dramatised has to be consulted or informed. Now, obviously, these things can be interpreted, and there's a slight leeway in terms of people being criminally convicted. But we assume watching it, you don't have to consult Karen Matthews.
We weren't allowed to anyway.
Right.
Because she was serving a prison sentence.
Yeah.
In the same with Craig,
Right.
But we contacted members of his family and her family. But they didn't get involved in the research.
We will contact probably everybody. I can't, unless there's some very small part, but we will contact everybody to let them know. That's more than anything, it's a courtesy thing, isn't it? You know,
It's aware of it, yeah.
it's going to be happening. But that's as opposed to sitting down and talking it through with them. That would have been.
I think it's a bit of a myth. It's about people have to give permission.
No,
I think it might have been the case a long time ago.
No, recently I think it is in the guidelines.
Well, is it more? I always thought it was more if you would film something on the street, I don't know, like
I know you do the back, yeah.
Jackass or
I
something.
think fiction is supposed to.
Have accidentally
Have you had any feedback from Julie about it before?
You were getting it on Monday. I was with Julie all day. And just going back and forth. How much longer am I going to be sat here and doing this? So I'm sure you could speak.
Go on, tell us.
Oh, sorry. Yes, she rang when she was doing interviews, and yeah, she said, "I've seen it." And I was like, she was like, "Yeah, brilliant."
When she first met Sheridan, Sheridan, I think, just had a cup of coffee and a cigarette. Someone said something, and then Julie just looked at her and went, "She's shooting up in my estimation." Cigarette, check. Coffee, check. Giving someone a, telling off, check.
She cried when she saw it as well.
She did. She cried. She pretended not. Oh yeah, she pretended not to. Oh God, yeah.
Any at the back? I'm just worried about people at the back. You go on here. Yes, go on here. Okay, we'll hang on there. Yes, please. Thank you.
It was beautifully written and acted, produced, everything well done. It was just such a beautiful production. Just a question for the writers and researchers. I look at the story, and there's a lot of people you could make believe and tell their story through their eyes. And I think Julie's a brilliant choice. I think because she did stand up in a different way than anyone else did, but yeah, that makes sense. It seems like this would be a fascinating story to research and write, because it's almost, look, you've written it this way. It's like in plain sight, the arc of the story is just right there with Julie and all of her sites. But I would love to hear kind of the formation of how you ended up deciding that, because you obviously did in-depth research. So at what point did this storyline, the arc, or the clarity for your story, which is very well told?
Neil, the writer.
Yeah.
One writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff had a sort of shape in his head when we first began to talk about it. But we always approach these things with a completely open mind, as if we know nothing, because actually we don't really. And so I arrived on Julie Ashby's doorstep, and actually she didn't have geese at that time. She had a bloody great Alsatian, and knocked on the door. Julie Bushby, actually I'd seen her walking up the street. She was stood, as she often is, in the front window in her gym jams and dressing gown. And I knocked on the door, "Are you Julie Bushby?" And She said, depends who's asking. And then you've kind of got a golden 5 minutes really to get through the, as you know, Mark, to sort of, is somebody going to talk to you? And I just go in, you know, I know, just tell me what happened because I don't know. And then speak to Julie, speak to Natalie, and it just began to form. And I think we stayed quite close to the shape that Jeff had in mind originally, which is somewhat unusual actually. Sometimes they can.
But and I mean this as a compliment. At Pregnant Adult, it has some overlap with. We're seeing these headline events, rather distressing events, but through a completely unexpected perspective. In the same way that we do the Frank West story through people have to see it. We see it through the woman who by law had to sit in on the...
It's an incredibly useful device because it just means you don't have to show the crime, you don't have to show horrible things. Yeah. Anyway, who knows? Sometimes at half the time, who the hell knows really?
Because they could be lying. I mean,
they could be lying, you're dealing with psychopaths, and actually our interest, I think I probably speak for all of us up here, our interest is how these massive stories, and they are massive, kind of wash over our lives, you know, and you sort of take a point of view, which is somebody who's at the centre of it, but doesn't necessarily know everything. It's writers here will know that's often, the God's eye view is harder to do because who knows, but the point of view of a person going into the room who doesn't know what's what, that helps you a lot, I think. And we have 3 points of view actually. We have Sheridan Julie's, Natalie Sean and Christine Freeman. 3 women looking at this 4th woman thinking.
It's sort of pointless to try and get inside the head of, say, Fred West or Ian Brady, or even Carrie, because what purpose? That we'll kind of leave that to Quentin Tarantino. I think it's what our story. We wanted to tell a different story. To answer your question, it is a process that we stumbled on over the years, but it is going over and over and over and over the material, constantly adding to it, constantly trying to speak to new people, and in the end, the story suggests itself, really, because there are key things, and you start to think, well, okay, that goes there, and we're going to build to that. So it's that process of continually going. I mean, Neil will spend years on this, you know, and did on this. You know, I'd forgotten until Sheridan reminded me that I first talked to you about this, and Paul, in Melbourne when we were in 2012, I think it was, or 13 when we shot that. So I'd forgotten it went back that far, and Neil was at that point. The first meeting with Julie was closer then. So it's a long, long process. You can't just pull them off the shelf.
And we've got to stop, I'm afraid, but the final question, obvious one for you, you must get asked all the time, but everyone wants to know, other real-life stories that you wish to do?
Yes, but no comment.
The one that everyone always asks both of you to know is Jimmy Savile, that at some point you will.
Yes. I mean, you know, Jeff and I think about lots of these possibilities. Well, we all do here. We think about, but in a way, it's how and what and why. You know, why are you doing it? You know, just because it's a big story, should you be doing it? You know, I always think, working on these things, if it doesn't keep me awake at night, shouldn't be doing it. You know, there's got to be a reason, not just because it's there. You know, what are you going to say about it? You know, so Jimmy Savile.